Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is 2nd July 2024 and we have some important articles for today's discussion. So all these articles that we are going to discuss are very important from exam point of view, and we'll try to understand those important articles in a multi-dimensional manner so that it would be useful for both prelims and mains examinations, right? So before discussing all of those articles, you all knew that every day we have one practice question for prelims. So yesterday also I've given one practice question, right? We'll try to solve that practice question. The question is Matsya 6000 recently seen in news. What is this Matsya 6000? Right? So the correct answer for this question is option C. It is a domestically developed submersible, right? So it is like a submersible and which is being used for important deep oceanic research, exploration of minerals, metals, everything. So for that particular purpose, this domestically developed submersible Matsya 6000 is being used. Now when you look into the explanation part of this Matsya 6000, right, so Matsya 6000 is a 3-person submersible. So 3-person can easily travel deep oceans under this Matsya in this Matsya 6000. It is a 3-person submersible and that will be able to go 6000 meters deep into the ocean, right? So when you are going deep into the ocean for the purpose of research, for the exploration and for different other purposes, right? So it should be able to withstand a high pressure deep in the ocean, right? So 6000 meters, if we translate this into kilometers, it is around 6 kilometers deep into the ocean. So therefore this Matsya 6000 can go up to 6 kilometers deep into the oceans for the purpose of research, and it can also carry with it 3-person and it is a submersible. And when we talk about this Matsya 6000, it is developed by National Institute of Ocean Technology, an institute which is based in Chennai, right? So National Institute of Ocean Technology has designed and developed Matsya 6000. Now when you look into the structure of Matsya 6000, so it is made up of 80 mm thick titanium alloy, right? So this Matsya 6000 is made up of 80 mm thick titanium alloy, right? So that this particular titanium alloy can be able to withstand pressure greater than 600 times the normal pressure that we observe at the ocean surface or at the sea level. So the Matsya 6000 will be able to operate continuously for 12 hours to 16 hours. And apart from that, so it could also sustain oxygen levels up to 96 hours. So these are the major features of Matsya 6000, right? So you can see on this image that it is India's first manned mission, right? In the Samudrayan mission, Matsya 6000 will be used, and the Samudrayan mission will be India's first manned ocean mission. In fact, it is a self-propelled manned submersible. Matsya 6000 has been developed by the National Institute of Ocean Technology. And again, same thing, that it could be able to continuously do operation for 12 to 16 hours straight, and it will have oxygen supply up to 96 hours. And this is about Matsya 6000. I hope you have understood about this. And today also I have another very important practice question. The question is, India is not a member of which of the following missile and dual use export control regimes? And in fact, so if you regularly follow news, you can also clearly and easily answer this question, right? So, there are 4 different groups which controls the missile technology or weapons technology, or it is also for the dual use export control. And you have to identify in how many of these groups that India is member. So the groups are, or the regimes are Australia Group, Missile Technology Control Regime, Nuclear Suppliers Group, and Wassenaar Arrangement. So please try to answer this question in the comment section, and I will be providing the correct answer in tomorrow's class. And let's start our discussion. So the first important article is from the Indian Express. So it is about recent floods in Delhi and how the urbanization. Whenever we talk about urbanization, it is unsustainable urbanization in Delhi. How this unsustainable urbanization in Delhi is a major cause for a very frequent and recurrent floods in Delhi. Right? So what are the steps or what are the measures that need to be taken to reduce the vulnerability of Delhi to these recurrent floods? Right? So we will understand the context. The context is that recent heavy rainfall in Delhi has once again highlighted a chronic issue of urban flooding. No doubt that it is chronic and a recurrent problem that Delhi has been facing over a period of last several years. In fact, the major reason for the recurrent and chronic urban floods is unplanned, unsustainable urbanization, urban expansion, and the inadequate drainage system. Even if we have the drainage system, those drainage systems are very often poorly managed by the municipal bodies. That results in overflooding of these drainage because of silting, because of plastic in these drainage channels. So all these factors have making that these drainages are very often clogged, and that has resulted in overflowing or overflooding of the water, making floods a chronic and recurrent problem in Delhi. Right? Now, how urbanization in Delhi is responsible for frequent and recurrent floods, that we need to understand this. No doubt that Delhi is one of the largest, across the world. Delhi is one of the fastest growing and one of the largest cities across the world. And since it is one of the largest growing city in the world, it has been expanding enormously over a period of time. According to some data, the geographical size of Delhi has almost doubled from 1991 to 2011, right? So there is actually a rapid increase in the expansion, rapid increase and expansion in the size of Delhi. So that is evident from the data that from 1991 to 2011, the Delhi city has almost doubled in size. Right? So the urban expansion, however, did not pay enough attention to Delhi's natural topography, and that has been a leading cause of frequent and recurrent floods that Delhi has been facing. Now, when we talk about the reasons for floods in Delhi, there were a number of reasons, and these reasons are responsible mostly for the urban floods. First and foremost, we need to talk about the unplanned urbanization in Delhi. Unplanned urbanization not in Delhi, any other city across India is responsible for floods. Now, whenever we talk about the unplanned manner of development, unplanned urbanization of cities, so it very often indicates that the municipal bodies are inefficient in planning the development of the cities. The municipal bodies will not have adequate plans in place in case of any disaster which is being faced by these cities. So how to overcome those disasters and how to reduce the vulnerabilities of the cities, how to achieve the resilience in infrastructure. So all these things are not well planned. So since it is an unplanned nature of urbanization, so very often it has been resulting in creation of slums, encroachment of the urban areas, and poor management of drainage, And not just poor management of drainage, we can also talk about poor urban waste management. With poor urban waste management, what is happening? The waste has been clogging these drainage. So when the plastic is clogging these drainages, so it would of course result in disruptions in the flow of water, especially the rainwater. So all these factors are because of unplanned urbanization that took place in Delhi. And after that, we need to consider the impact on drainage also. Now when you look into a city, so it is a historical city, there is no doubt about that. There are a number of historical buildings in Delhi. Okay, so therefore the historical areas in Delhi are very often built over high ground. So all these historical sites are built over high ground, and since they are built over high ground, this allows rainwater to naturally drain from higher areas to the lower areas. Generally the rainwater drain. However, if you look into the modern construction of Delhi, most of the modern development of Delhi is located in these low-lying areas. So therefore water generally flows from the higher ground to the low-lying areas, and that has actually disrupted the natural drainage routes as well. And in fact, when we talk about Delhi, so it is very often associated with the concrete jungles, right? So when I say concrete jungles, so it essentially means that everywhere in Delhi there is no scope for the water, especially the rainwater, to seep underground. So everywhere it is a concrete buildings, everything is concretized in Delhi. So because of that reason, this concretization reduces land's ability to absorb excess rainwater. And this has been a leading factor, or it has been increased the surface runoff during the heavy rains. So since water cannot be absorbed into the soil, everything is concretized in Delhi. In case of a heavy downpour, it has been flooding all the city. Now, it is not just limited to Delhi. Most of the cities in India have been facing this problem because of unplanned urbanization and concrete jungles in these urban centers, and no attempts from the municipal government or municipal bodies to reduce the vulnerabilities of those cities from floods and other major disasters that they have been facing regularly. So we cannot expect that these municipal bodies or urban development would be sustainable without having a planned model of development. And after that, we need to talk about the drainage infrastructure also. If you look into the existing drainage systems, including drains, nallas, so they are very often insufficiently maintained, and they are also becoming very often clogged because of siltation, because of plastic pollution, because plastic is very often clogging this. So all these factors, especially the poor management of these drainage system, is a leading cause of urban floods in cities like Delhi. And apart from this, we should also understand that there is an encroachment problem of floodplains of Yamuna. Encroachment of floodplains. So this is also a major issue, right? So whenever floodplains are being encroached upon, so there will be higher intensity of flood, and that even leads to the loss of lives and loss of property also. So this encroachment of Yamuna floodplains in Delhi must be controlled, right? So this encroachment must be cleared. They should not be hand in glove for the officers with the politicians and the real estate tycoons. So this must be dealt severely. So if we wanted to really find out a solution for a frequent and recurrent urban floods, right? So in this scenario, how can sustainable urban planning can actually help to save cities like Delhi from frequent floods how this sustainable urban planning can actually help such cities. Now, whenever we talk about the municipal planning, these urban areas must prioritize sustainable urban planning. So they must prioritize sustainable urban planning, and this sustainable urban planning is very, very important, right? So whenever we talk about the sustainable urban planning, it should take into consideration different things. For example, waste management should be the component of sustainable urban planning. Waste management, along with waste management, regular drainage management, and protection and conservation of floodplains is also very, very important. Floodplains and encroachments must be dealt severely, and revival and rejuvenation of the urban water bodies, this is also very, very important. For example, when we talk about cities, metropolitan cities like Bengaluru, there were number of water bodies which were existing earlier, but those water bodies are now increasingly encroached upon, and that has been increasing the vulnerability of cities for these floods. In fact, we can say that these water bodies are urban sponges. Whenever there is an excess rainfall, these water bodies can absorb excess rainfall. And apart from that, we should also deal with the excess concretization of the urban centers, because concretization reduces the ability of the soil to absorb the water, and this concretization should also be dealt with. And apart from that, when we talk about the growth must be green growth in these urban areas. And along with the green growth, so we must empower and educate people in those urban areas, because they can, as a stakeholders, can play a very important role in reducing the vulnerability of these cities to floods. And they can also increase pressure on the governments, municipal bodies, to prioritize sustainable urban planning. And when we talk about sustainable urban planning, the comprehensive infrastructure development is also very, very important, right? So we have identified different components of sustainable urban planning. When we deal with all these components, it is very important that we need to develop a comprehensive and resilient infrastructure to these floods or these disasters in urban areas. We should also focus on preservation and restoration of existing natural water bodies. As I have already told you that these natural water bodies can address flooding in urban areas by absorbing the excess rainwater, right? So thereby they can actually reduce flooding in these urban areas. And after that, measures such as green roofs have to be created, and there should be a rainwater harvesting system with the commercial buildings, with the household or domestic buildings. There should be water harvesting systems that should be in place. Whenever we have the water harvesting systems, these urban areas will not face water problems or water crisis in future. And currently we have been seeing that majority of Indian metropolitan cities have been facing severe water scarcity and water crisis. The examples are being Delhi, Bengaluru and Chennai. So these cities have been facing severe water crisis. We need to involve people. We need to involve the communities, private sector and civil society to bring a positive change, to make our municipal bodies prioritizing sustainable urban planning. It is very, very important that every building should have a proper rainwater harvesting systems, and even the permeable pavements. So these permeable pavements can actually absorb the excess water, and thereby they can reduce the intensity of the flood in those urban areas. And they can also reduce the surface runoff because of these permeable pavements, and they can also alleviate the pressure on the existing drainage systems. And these all solutions are very, very important whenever we wanted to build or whenever we wanted to make urban centers resilient to the floods, right? Whenever we wanted to create a resilient communities for these floods, all these measures have to be followed in letter and spirit. However, the government has launched number of programs, number of initiatives to deal with these urban flooding. Now we'll look into those initiatives, that schemes that the government has launched to reduce the negative impact of urban flooding or reduce the vulnerability of flooding in these urban areas. The first important mission is Amrut 2.0 program, right? So this is also known as Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, or Amrut 2.0 scheme. Now when we look into the major aspects of Amrut 2.0 scheme, so it actually provides rainwater harvesting systems. As I have already stressed on these rainwater harvesting systems and how these rainwater harvesting systems are important in these urban areas to alleviate the water crisis or water stress that these urban areas have been facing. So therefore Amrut 2.0 provides that there should be a rainwater harvesting system in every building that should be put in place. And at the same time, we need to revive, preserve the existing water bodies so that the storm water can be absorbed by these water bodies. And apart from that, creation and strengthening of storm water drainages around a water body. So when you create the storm water drains around the water body can quickly absorb most of the water from the nearby areas, so thereby reducing the intensity of the flood in these urban areas. So therefore Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation has all these components in place which reduces the vulnerability of urban areas and at the same time make urban areas flood resilient, right? So achieving flood resilience is very important, and flood resilience can be achieved by these initiatives and these measures. And apart from Amrut 2.0, there is also another very important, there are some other important initiatives that the government has launched in this respect. Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Amrut Sarovar Mission, Atal Bhujal Yojana, Model Building Bylaws 2016. So all these are important measures and initiatives by the government which aim at reducing the vulnerability of urban areas to flooding and the water crisis that these cities or urban areas have been facing. Now whenever you write an answer, because such questions as themes earlier also asked in UPSC mains examination, you must mention the reasons, examples, and what should be done. We need to prioritize sustainable urban planning, and comprehensive infrastructure should be in place. And you should also mention the initiatives, measures that the government has launched, so that you will get good marks in your answer. Rather than writing generic points, you have to substantiate your answer with all these initiatives, all these examples. If you have done answer writing in that manner, you will score good marks. And after that, another very important topic, that is Kuno's cheetal population has been dwindling or declining at a faster pace. Now if you remember that cheetah reintroduction program was started by India. Cheetah reintroduction program. Now when we talk about this cheetah reintroduction program, so way back in 1950s, cheetahs, especially Asiatic cheetahs in India, went extinct. Asiatic cheetahs went extinct in India way back in 1950s, and this was majorly because of hunting and poaching. Uncontrolled hunting and poaching, and that has led to the extinction of Asiatic cheetahs from India, right? However, only country which has the Asiatic cheetahs population is Iran. Earlier, India requested Iran to provide Asiatic cheetahs for cheetah reintroduction program for the conservation and protection of cheetahs in India, so that we can revive cheetah population in India. However, Iran refused to provide cheetahs to India. So since Iran is the only country with Asiatic cheetahs and Iran refused to provide cheetahs to India, so India requested African cheetahs from Namibia and South Africa. Africa and Namibia are the countries. In fact, when we talk about Namibia, Namibia is the country with largest African cheetahs population. So African cheetahs and Asiatic cheetahs are almost similar. with some minor differences. However, both South Africa and Namibia have agreed to provide India with cheetahs for its cheetah reintroduction program. However, the major question is we need to find out a suitable habitat if we wanted to introduce cheetahs, African cheetahs from Namibia and South Africa into India. After careful examination and assessment of different habitats, different national parks across the country, the experts have identified Kuno Palpur National Park in Madhya Pradesh as a suitable habitat. Kuno Palpur National Park in Madhya Pradesh as a suitable habitat for reintroduction of cheetahs, African cheetahs into India. So as part of this, cheetahs from both Namibia and South Africa have been introduced in this Kuno Palpur National Park. Right? In fact, so it is one of the successful programs of cheetah reintroduction because these cheetahs have been thriving in the Kuno Palpur National Park. So when we talk about the Kuno Palpur National Park, there are actually number of big predators, leopard, tigers, and even cheetahs. They are big predators in the Kuno Palpur National Park. However, prey is cheetal. Cheetal is the prey, right? So this cheetal is also a spotted deer. We can say that it is a spotted deer and it is a prey species in the Kuno Palpur National Park. However, the concern is that the prey population in the Kuno Palpur National Park has been significantly dwindling, right? So the prey population has been declining. So if prey population has been declining, Asiatic cheetahs, leopards and other predators who have dependent on cheetal for their survival would not be able to survive in Kuno Palpur National Park. So therefore it would threaten the entire food chain. The declining cheetal population would not be best suitable for the conservation of other species. So therefore in this context, declining cheetal population in Kuno Palpur National Park of course is a concern. Now we'll understand the context of it. Cheetah project has made headlines in last few years because of plans to relocate surplus cheetahs from Kuno Palpur National Park to Indira Gandhi Wildlife Sanctuary. Since cheetal is the only natural prey for these leopards, tigers and cheetah population. Now there are plans in order to make sure that these cheetahs would not suffer because of the low prey population in Kuno Palpur National Park. There are actually plans to translocate cheetahs, a few cheetahs from Kuno Palpur National Park, Madhya Pradesh, from Kuno Palpur National Park to Indira Gandhi Wildlife Sanctuary. In fact, this decision follows a concern about the declining in cheetal population, primarily prey for cheetahs. So this cheetal is primary prey for cheetahs, and challenges which are being posed by a leopard predation. So declining cheetal population in Kuno Palpur National Park is because of excessive predation by the leopard population on these cheetal, right? So these cheetal population has been facing the threat because of the leopard predation on the cheetal, right? When we talk about this key findings of this, the cheetal population has been declining, but as I've already told you that we have introduced African cheetahs into India, particularly the Kuno Palpur National Park from South Africa and Namibia. So as of now, Kuno Palpur National Park hosts 26 cheetahs, including 13 newborn cubs. So these 13 cubs were born in India. However, there are concerns about the declining or dwindling cheetal population in Kuno Palpur National Park, and cheetal is one of the main prey for the cheetah population, right? This is main prey for the cheetahs, and cheetal population has been declining 25% since 2022. For example, imagine that in 2022 we have 100 cheetals. Cheetals are spotted deer, okay? So not cheetah. When we talk about cheetal, so they are spotted deer, right? So this spotted deer is the main prey for the cheetahs. But the spotted deer population has been dwindling. If population has been dwindling, the cheetah reintroduction program would not be successful in India, because spotted deer or cheetal is the main prey for the cheetahs. Imagine that when we talk about the numbers, in 2022 there were 100 cheetal population. By 2024 the numbers have reduced to 75%. The main reason is because of excessive predation by the leopards. Excessive predation by the leopards in the Kuno Palpur National Park, and this is the major reason. And in fact, leopard predation on cheetal is one of the most significant issue, despite there were efforts that were put in place earlier also to control the excessive predation by leopards on the cheetal population. However, the experts have been thinking that the officials of these forest departments or the environment department have been thinking that in order to address the problem of declining cheetal population, or address the issue of leopard predation on the cheetal population, so it is important to balance predator and prey dynamics. So we need to balance the predator and prey dynamics. So that is very important, right? So if predators start preying on the existing species excessively, so that would significantly reduces the number of prey, and that would threaten the existence of the predator also, right? So therefore there is a need for balance between predator and prey dynamics. So experts have been considering options of introducing larger cats like tigers into Kuno Palpur National Parks, because the tigers are very often viewed as the natural competitors for the leopards. Now whenever the tigers are being introduced into the Kuno Palpur National Park, so that could potentially reduces, because of this natural competition between tigers and leopards, so that could potentially reduce the impact of the leopard predation on the cheetal population. So this was the one option that the experts have been considering, introducing tigers, which is a natural competitor for the leopards. Now when we talk about the cheetal population, so its scientific name is Axis axis. So these cheetal population or cheetahs are also called with other names such as spotted deer, cheetal deer, axis deer. And in fact, it belongs to deer species which is native to the Indian subcontinent. You very often seen these deers, right? So we very often known about that as a spotted deer, and even cheetal deer also, or cheetal also. Now when we talk about the distribution, so it is distributed in different countries across South Asia, right? So as we have already told you that it is native to the Indian subcontinent. Since it is native to the Indian subcontinent, it spreads in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and a small part in Pakistan as well, right? So when we talk about the characteristic features of this cheetal population, only males have antlers and their bodies are larger than the females. The IUCN status is least concern, right? So IUCN status is least concern for this cheetal population. Next, when we talk about the Kuno National Park, which is in Madhya Pradesh, so this Kuno National Park has spread over an area of 748 square kilometers, right? So within the Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Kuno River, so it is one of the main tributaries of Chambal River, flows through the entire length, bisecting the national park as a division. And main species that we see in this Kuno National Park includes leopard, jackal, and chinkara. So these are the major species that we found in the Kuno Palpur National Park. I hope you have understood this in a very detailed manner. And next important article, it is about the new criminal laws that were replacing the old laws, Code of Criminal Procedure, Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, were replaced by these three new criminal laws. And what is the state of preparedness? Okay, we have introduced 3 new criminal laws, and we also asked the courts, the judiciary, and the police personnel, the system, to change laws, to change existing laws with these 3 new laws. But it is also very important that the introduction and implementation of these 3 new laws is hasty and immediate. And it has resulted in a lot of challenges with respect to lack of preparedness, lack of training. If there is a lack of training and lack of preparedness on the part of the police personnel, and lack of awareness about these 3 new laws, so it will be very difficult, very complicated to implement these 3 laws in a much more effective manner. Of course, it will take time, but it would be better if the government gives more training, adequate training, and technology support for the implementation of these 3 new criminal laws. Unless training, technical support, or the technological support, it would create a lot of confusion and complexities in the implementation of these 3 new criminal laws. As we knew that when we talk about the context, Union government has recently introduced 3 new criminal laws in India. So these 3 new criminal laws have replaced long-standing statutes in India, right? So those statutes are Indian Penal Code and Code of Criminal Procedure, and even the Indian Evidence Act. So these 3 were replaced by a new criminal laws. However, the legislative overhaul of these 3 new criminal laws, or these were old laws, there were 3 new criminal laws. So this legislative overhaul has sparked a significant debate, and it has also raised concerns about the readiness of the policing and judicial systems, because they are introduced and implemented in a hasty manner. Now, whenever they are implemented and introduced and implemented in a hasty manner, it is also important that we need to look into the readiness of the police system and the judiciary for the implementation of these new legal frameworks. Otherwise, it would create a lot of confusion, right? In this context, we'll understand what are the challenges in preparedness, so that the judiciary and police would make would make a transformation into these 3 new criminal laws. The problem is there is an inefficient training, insufficient training, and there is also no technological upgrades as well, right? So despite some rudimentary training sessions and technological upgrades like crime and criminal tracking networks, doubts have been existing regarding the preparedness of both upper and lower levels of the police force. So it is said that there is no adequate preparedness with respect to the police system and the judiciary. They are not yet ready to implement these laws. It is hasty and they lack adequate training. However, reports have been indicating that the station house personnel, especially with respect to police, they have received a very minimal training. In fact, we can say that they have not received any sort of a training. And since there is a lack of proper training, that could hinder the ability to effectively enforce these new laws. And apart from that, now we can say that there is a hurried and hasty transition from the old laws into the new legal frameworks. So therefore, it has been highlighting or indicating that there is lack of adequate training, and workshops were not conducted to create awareness among the officers, to impart some training, impart some knowledge about the implementation of these 3 new laws, and training programs were not properly conducted across the country, right? So since these things were done inadequately, so we cannot expect that these 3 new laws can be implemented across the country in a much more efficient manner, that it would create a lot of confusion and even complicates the implementation of these 3 new criminal laws. And when I say these three criminal laws, yesterday also I have told you that there were three new criminal laws. For example, the Indian Penal Code will be replaced by Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and Code of Criminal Procedure will be replaced by Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, and Indian Evidence Act will be replaced by Bharatiya Saksha. So these three are new criminal bills, and these three new criminal bills are replacing earlier old and archaic criminal laws. However, in the implementation, there are a lot of challenges and a lot of concerns also, right? So in this three new laws, there were a lot of Hindi terms or Hindi names, and there is an absence of the English equivalents, and this would create a lot of confusion because most of the earlier laws were well versed in English language. Every officer and the police system and the judiciary were well versed with those terms, but these Hindi terms and absence of the equivalents in English creates a lot of confusion among stakeholders, thereby impacting accessibility and the comprehension of the legal provisions as well in the short run. And in fact, while passing these bills, there was also an inadequate legislative debate. There is a need for a legislative debate, that too in an extensive manner, whenever we have been overhauling these three landmark laws. Critics have been pointing out this fact that legislative process actually lacked sufficient time, right? So whenever we look into the parliament as a legislature, so it is a very important for an elaborate and holistic debate and discussion in the parliament about different bills. So whenever we don't have adequate debates and discussions about the bills, then we cannot be able to understand the loopholes and the drawbacks that were existing in the bills. So therefore, it is very important that whenever such bills are introduced, we need to promote and encourage a holistic and comprehensive debate and discussion about those bills. Right? The critics have been arguing that even during the introduction of these bills also, there was a lack of sufficient times for a thorough debates in the legislature. And that has raised a lot of concerns with respect to transparency of these bills and a lack of stakeholder inclusiveness. Stakeholders were not involved. The opinions and the perspectives of stakeholders were not included when these bills were passed, when these bills were replacing the existing old criminal laws, right? Stakeholder inclusiveness is also very, very important. We need to include the civil society. Multiple stakeholders should take part in this whenever we're passing such effective bills. And after that, there are also a lot of concerns over the expanded police powers in these three new criminal laws. Now, whenever we talk about increased police powers, so that also very often comes close to the police state, and that threatens or violates individuals' fundamental rights, right? So police state should not be encouraged in any country, right? In any society. Rather, everyone should strive towards the welfare state. Rather, the critics have been arguing that there are a lot of potential loopholes in these three new criminal laws, and also there will be unintended consequences because of certain provisions such as expanded police powers related to the custody, and those excessive police powers could potentially infringe on the fundamental rights of Indians or fundamental rights of Indian citizens, right? So what will be the implications of these three new bills or these three new criminal laws, and what would be the future outlook of these three new laws? So when we talk about the implications, there is an inclusion of terrorism offenses. In these three new criminal laws, terrorism was included as a regular criminal offense alongside existing anti-terrorism laws as well, right? So this has created a lot of ambiguity and even the operational challenges with respect to investigation, the procedural issues, the custody, everything, right? So such ambiguities must be looked into, and such ambiguities must be carefully assessed so that there will be no ambiguity and no confusion in the implementation of these three new criminal laws. In fact, states have also been granted autonomy to amend new laws, but still there are a lot of uncertainties in this regarding these three new criminal laws, right? So all these issues have to be addressed, and states should be given a proper direction, so a proper guidelines over these three new laws. And apart from that, there are also mixed reactions over the procedural reforms, especially when we talk about some procedural reforms such as mandatory FIR registration, use of videography in searches. So these are seen as a positive steps. However, there are still a lot of doubts about the overall efficiency and effectiveness, and even potential for unintended consequences due to the implementation of these three new criminal laws. But it has to be seen over a period of time how the judiciary and the police and even citizens would adopt to these three new criminal laws. And it is also expected that the ambiguities, complexities that are existing in these three new criminal laws must be dealt with, must be looked into. So therefore, it would be implemented for the betterment and for the welfare of the people, and at the same time protection of the fundamental rights also, without violating them by providing excessive rights to the authorities. And next, a very important article. So recently SEBEX 2 is in use. Now we'll understand what is this SEBEX 2. So India has successfully developed a certified SEBEX 2. So this certified SEBEX 2 is unexplosive, right? So how we use explosives in warheads to create a lot of destruction in the enemy territory, or exert a lot of damage on the enemy territory. So in a similar way, SEBEX 2 is an explosive that is 2.01 times more lethal than the standard trinitrotoluene, right? So we will understand what exactly is the standard trinitrotoluene, right? So HEMEX, the explosive used in the warheads like BrahMos. In BrahMos missiles also we use explosives, and such explosives are known as HEMEX. And these explosives are actually 1.5 times higher than the TNT equivalents, trinitrotoluene equivalents, but the SEBEX 2 is 2.01 times more lethal and more destructive than the trinitrotoluene. And SEBEX 2 is the new formulation which was developed recently, and India has actually successfully tested this SEBEX 2. And higher power of such conventional weapons actually enables filling the warheads with a lesser explosive. We can fill the warheads with a lesser explosive because of higher power to such explosives. And we can also increase the damage if same quantity is maintained in these warheads. Now when we talk about the SEBEX 2, and in fact, so it is not a nuclear weapon. Even though it is not a nuclear weapon, it is the most powerful non-nuclear explosive in the world, right? So it is a most powerful non-nuclear explosive in the world. Remember that it is not the most powerful, rather it is among the most powerful non-nuclear explosives in the world. In fact, it also utilizes high melting explosives. So high melting explosives. So it also uses high melting explosives composition. And this formulation significantly enhances the lethality of the warheads, thereby creating a much more damage and destruction if we used such explosives in an enemy territory, right? So it makes the warheads, aerial bombs, artillery shells and other ammunitions much more lethal, and we can just use a minimum amount of such explosive because of their lethality is much more higher than the conventional explosives. And in fact, it is 2.01 times more deadly than the standard trinitrotoluene. And this standard trinitrotoluene, the explosives right? So there are different explosives across the world, and explosives performance and their capacity is actually measured or gauged by this trinitrotoluene equivalence. And higher values of this trinitrotoluene values indicating that they are greater in terms of lethality. Currently, the most powerful conventional explosives which are being used in India, especially in BrahMos like missiles or warheads, has the TNT value equivalence of about 1.50 times. And even more conventional warheads worldwide have this trinitrotoluene equivalence ranging from 1.2 to 1.30. Right? So who manufactured this Cibex 2? So it was manufactured by Economic Explosives Limited, Nagpur. Just remember this, it was manufactured by Economic Explosives Limited, Nagpur, and in fact it is a subsidiary of Solar Industries under the Make in India initiative. So in fact it has been evaluated, tested and certified by the Indian Navy under Defense Export Promotion Scheme in the past as well. So this is all about the Cibex 2. So that's all in this lecture, and if you like our work, please like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.